Jay Runer here, and today I'm just going to be talking about hot lapping, tuning, and a few things that have been going on. So, just letting y'all know, I did get the job that I was going for. So I'm going to have about a little bit of a month before I start that, and I might be able to put out a few more videos here and there. But here lately, I've just been kind of in a dry spell, haven't been too motivated to make videos, but I'm just going to be talking about some hot lapping tips, in tuning, in driving in general. Right now, you're watching footage of my last session in the Porsche RS Spec Challenge and Rivals, and how frustrating this track can be at times. But for the most part, getting into hot lapping and tuning for hot lapping, it's interesting, or it's kind of difficult to get into it if you've never really done it. So here are a few tips that you can use to, get into hot lapping if you want to in the Rivals. What I generally do is, first things first, you look at the leaderboard and see what the top cars are. All right, sometimes people are just like, I'm going to take whatever car I want and try to beat those cars. Well, if you want to be the best or in the top, or try to go for number one, you better use what everybody else is using. Unfortunately, Forza is not a fighting game, so it doesn't matter how skilled you are with a particular car, it cannot beat some other cars based on a few factors of either speed, acceleration, or handling. Now, the things that you need in a leaderboard car are mainly handling, acceleration, and braking. A lot of people forget about braking a lot of times. Braking is generally looked over a lot of times when people are building cars, because just as fast as that car can accelerate, or however fast it can go, you're going to need the brakes to be able to stop that car. And there's a few techniques that can make other cars better at braking, like engine braking. That's when you just downshift into a gear below or two gears, and then hold your brakes steady. You don't want to hold them too hard when engine braking, because you can lock up the tires or heat them up to where you can't go through the turn. That's a technique you would have to practice for a long time, depending on what the track is, what kind of car you got, elevation, yada, 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 etc. Engine braking is probably the main style of slowing down a car in Rivals. You can watch footage, which I don't primarily set a ghost rival, but to some people, setting a ghost rival does help them out a lot. I don't normally do it because it distracts me, and I'd rather focus on the track instead. Instead, I opt for watching. I'll watch a replay. I'll see kind of what they do, and I'll go from there. But when it comes to building a car, now when building and tuning a car for a Rivals track, you can watch the film, and if there's a tune that you can download the tune. See what is the general stats of what they got. What's their horsepower? What's the weight of the car? Is there any weight distribution differences? Do they change the engine? There's a lot of things that you got to consider when building a leaderboard car. And a lot of times I will take a reference from somebody that's in the top 10, top 20, and I will look at their build and be like, okay, how can I make this better? And normally I can make the car lighter with the same amount of power and the same amount of weight distribution, which, a lot of times there are just things that people don't know when, optimizing a build. Like, weight is a big thing. Sometimes you can make a car too light, like the leases. A lot of times those can be too light, and you want to keep some weight in those cars. But in most situations, you're going to want to be as light as possible. So when building your car, definitely look at some of the top runners, and if you can download one of their tunes. If you download one of their tunes, great. You got a little reference to go by, then you can build it the way you want to. Maybe you can get some more power out of it. Maybe you can get less weight out of it. A lot of times I can get less weight and maybe 2 or 3 more horsepower than the top competitors that are on the leaderboard. And that's just, test and tuning, removing parts, adding parts, seeing how much PI you got. Are they using bigger rims? Are they using heavier rims to downplay the PI system so they can add more horsepower to it? A lot of times adding weight can do that, but is the horsepower justifiable to the weight that you're adding to the car? That is something you need to ask yourself before going that route. Sometimes it does matter. If it's a top speed track where your top end matters more than anything else, yes, adding weight to the car and adding more power is going to give you more top end in the end. But building a leaderboard car, you want to keep acceleration, handling, and your braking extremely high on your to-do list. So reducing the weight, better brakes, better tires, wider tires is generally the route you would want to go. But that's what I generally do when doing leaderboard runs or any kind of hot lapping session. I will look at those things first before I start building the car. Then I tune it as I normally would. And that's what some people forget. At the end of the day, yes, you can download their tunes and learn how to drive their style, or you can just replicate what they did and then tune the suspension to the style of your driving. So a lot of people think that you need to drive their style to be the fastest, and sometimes maybe their tune is much better when it comes to suspension and handling, or there's a reason why they did something. A lot of times they are tuning to their own personal liking. Now, there are those cases where you're driving a missile car and it doesn't matter what you do with the suspension. The car's going to be all over the place. It's just going to be based on how lucky can you get when sliding the car through a corner. But those are normally fun to do. I'm not generally a big fan of missile car runs. And anytime you are in a hot lap session and you find yourself starting to get frustrated, take a minute, take a minute to back up and just cool the tires down. A lot of times cooling the tires down for a lap by going at a moderate pace, maybe 80, 90 miles per hour through the course, cool down the tires for a lap. If you already got a penalty, you got to get rid of that penalty by going through the course perfectly, so there's no reason wasting a good lap that you can't ever record. That is one of the most frustrating things that can happen during a hot lapping session, is that you're on a good pace and you're about to beat your time, but you got a penalty. So it doesn't matter whether you beat it or not. Yes, it can give you an idea of what you're capable of, but it doesn't matter. It's not recordable. So, take the time, take the course easy, and then come back around with a vengeance. Once you get to the last corner, make sure you get your top end speed and then go right back into it. That's what I generally do if I start getting a little frustrated, like on Prague in this Porsche RS. Oh, this track frustrated me a lot when they first came out with this. When the game first came out, it's because of the last section where if the car lifted or it bumped hard enough, you get a penalty for that. And I still think it does that now, even though the track limits are there. Even though I do love the track limits ribbon. And that's another thing. Turn on the ribbon. It's better to know where the track limits are than to be guessing. Now, if you like the little markers, that's fine. I turn them on because it just gives me the best idea of how far I can cut into it. On this particular track, at that last tight chicane at the end, you can dip 2 wheels off, and sometimes you'll get a penalty. Sometimes you won't. It's just kind of like one of those things that you just you got to test it and hope that you don't get a penalty. It's kind of still the same. I don't know if it's because the car lifts or whatever, but if that was the case, if the car lifted Alps, you would always get a penalty for launching the car at the very end when you go up the hill. So, not sure if they really changed the track limits or not, but this has been going on a little bit longer than anticipated. But I know in this session here, I did end up getting 8th in America and 19th in the world after this session. Pretty much put myself exactly where I was last time before they cleared the leaderboards. But this has been Jay Runer. Hopefully, I'll be bringing some more content. Maybe I can get back into the hopper racing again. I've been kind of discouraged by hopper racing here lately, so been kind of avoiding that. But I'll try to get back into it, bring you some like interesting cars to look at, and yeah, I think that's all I got. If y'all have any questions for me, let me know. I appreciate all the subs that I've been getting while I've been in this little hiatus of mine. Do appreciate all that. And like I said, if you have any questions, let me know. But this has been Jay Runer. Like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.